Robert, I'm not sure if the furnishings are enough. Are we celebrating the 250th? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Amazing.
I was just saying, I'm not sure if the furnishings are enough in the room. Congratulations, Haley. Well deserved and long overdue.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Robert Marshall. I'm the chair of the Salem Human Rights Commission. We will do a round robin set of introductions. We'll start with individuals in the room, and then we'll kick it over to those that are attending virtually via Zoom. So I'll pass off to my vice chair.
Christina Ballard, Vice Chair, Human Rights Commission.
Chris Snyder, city staff.
Joaquin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, Joaquin Lara Mariquez, member of the commission, Georgia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Georgia Smith.
And Celine Coleman just walked in. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that we have a few new faces joining us. I do want to just take the time to thank both Commissioner Smith and Haley for Commissioner Perenbaum for stepping up and everything to serve on the Salem Human Rights Commission. We appreciate your service to the city of Salem, and we look forward to having you contribute to these discussions as we try to make the state's capital a more welcoming and inclusive place for all citizens. We will move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. Do we have any members public who would like to provide comment? Excuse me, ma'am, we're here to provide public comment. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. Were there any public comments that were received via online? All right. Move on to item number 3, member remarks and announcements on non-agenda items. Anybody have anything to add? All right, none. Moving right along, agenda item 4A, bias crime update. We'll welcome Sergeant Robert Dowd from the Salem Police Department.
Active and start talking. Hello and thank you. My name is Robert Dowd. I'm a sergeant with the Salem Police Department. My primary role is to oversee our personnel and training unit, and I serve as the police department's liaison here with the Human Rights Commission. This evening I have 5 items to talk about that have occurred in the city of Salem since our last meeting. On June 13th in Northeast Salem, there was an assault 4 incident based on race and national origin. A Hispanic individual reported being approached and physically assaulted by a female suspect who threw rocks and scratched him repeatedly, all while calling him racial slurs and referencing his ethnicity. Witnesses corroborated the suspect's actions and language. The victim sustained multiple bleeding scratches and reported significant pain. The suspect was arrested and charged with bias crime 1 and assault 4 and lodged at the jail. On the 16th of June in Northeast Salem, there was a bias incident involving derogatory language based on national origin. An individual reported being harassed by an intoxicated patron at a bar who mocked his lisp and made derogatory remarks about his Mexican heritage. The harassment was confirmed by staff, but no crime was determined. The complainant was provided with bias advocacy information and the case was closed. No arrest was made on that incident. On the 17th of June in Northeast Salem, there was another incident of derogatory language based on gender. A transgender individual reported that a neighbor experiencing a mental health episode attempted to enter the caller's apartment and directed transphobic slurs at the caller during the encounter. No injuries occurred, and the complainant requested only that the incident be documented and that they did not wish to pursue charges. The case was closed. On the 20th of June in Northeast Salem, there was an incident involving menacing based on race. A visitor to Salem who was of Native Alaskan heritage reported that an unknown male directed racial slurs at him and threatened him during a confrontation in the street. The victim believed that they were targeted based on their race. Although the male matched a recent pattern of police contacts in the area, police could not positively identify the suspect, and so no arrest was made. The case remains inactive pending further information. And then on the 28th of June, also in Northeast Salem, there was an assault 3. So an individual reported being struck from behind by a vehicle while riding their skateboard late at night. The occupants of the vehicle allegedly used anti-LGBTQ slurs immediately after the collision. They did not stop, so there would also be hit and run there. The victim sustained minor injuries. The case was documented as a potential bias-motivated hit and run, but remains inactivated pending suspect identification. In this particular incident, the officer went out and tried to look at Ring doorbell cameras from several residences in the area, the footage from the bar, the footage from a local convenience store, and traffic cameras. And so far, they've been unable to identify a suspect vehicle that was involved. There's a very specific make model of the vehicle involved, and we haven't been able to find it on video. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sergeant Dowd.
I have a question.
All right.
And with the second incident, or third incident, I think, the
Uh-huh.
mental health episode,
Mhm.
the person having the mental health episode is the one who used the slurs? or
Correct. So the-
Transphobic language.
Correct. So these people know each other. They're otherwise friends. And the person calling in said that the neighbor is usually very friendly, but they suffer from schizophrenia. And when they're experiencing a schizophrenic episode, that there has been more than one occasion where these slurs have been used towards the caller. And so the caller wanted it documented in this circumstance.
Okay, thank you. And then the incident at the Pride rally was not documented as a bias incident? There were two
It
arrests?
didn't get forwarded, so I didn't, it didn't come through on my, my list, so I just missed it. But it wasn't forwarded to me, so,
Okay. Mhm. I was hoping maybe somebody from Salem Capital Pride would be here, but hopefully maybe next time we can have them talk, because I know that there's been other issues before. Do you know anything about that incident offhand, or?
the one from the Pride event recently. Yeah, so Chris had reached out. Here's the problem, is that case is still going through the legal process.
Mhm.
And so I'm not really at liberty to discuss any of the details of the case because of where it's at within the legal process. But I am familiar with the incident.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Lara Mitkiff.
Thank you. Briefly, Sergeant Dowd, thank you for your presentation. You mentioned I think it was the fourth one about the Alaska Native gentleman who was who made a call that there was part of a pattern of behavior. Is that pattern included in the earlier two comments that you mentioned from Northeast Salem, or another pattern that you didn't mention in your
No,
update?
I mean, as you know, the Northeast Salem's a very large area. So
Yeah.
the described suspect, officers believe that they knew who the suspect was based on the description, because a person matching that description had been contacted several times throughout the previous like day and a half. But when they actually went so far as to do a photo throwdown where they create six very similar photographs um, of the person that they believe to be the suspect and then five other individuals, and they presented it to the victim in that case, and the victim actually selected not the person they believed it to be.
Hmm.
And so they weren't able to substantiate that it was the person that the officers believed it to be. But the person was involved in other not similar incidents, but other incidents where police were contacting him within the Northeast Salem area.
Understood. So, but just to clarify, so those other incidences were not bias
Correct.
related incidents. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Was there,
Can I ask a question?
I don't mind.
You don't mind, hi, Mel Fuller, I'm the director of the Salem High School
Mel,
Board.
Mel, would you mind just taking this other microphone over here? It's the only way people online can hear you.
Hi, my name is Mel Fuller, and I'm a director on the Salem Kaiser School Board. And I just noticed that, and I serve on a Zone 7, which is all of Northeast Salem, not all of it, but a good portion of it. All of the instances that you just reported happened in Northeast Salem. So my question is, when you come and give these reports, is there a proportion of the reports that you give that are, I'm trying to figure out how to word this correctly. That's a lot.
Mhm.
Do most of the bias crimes that you deal with happen in a specific area of town? They happen more in one area than in others? I was just shocked to hear that they all happened in Northeast.
I was
Not shocked, but I heard it.
I was surprised, honestly, to see that we had five since the last meeting. So far this year, it's been two or three in a month's time span, and not all of them have been in Northeast Salem. We've
Okay.
had, West Salem, South Salem. To see five, but none of them were related. All apparently different suspects, and like I said before, Northeast Salem is a very large geographic area.
It is.
And so none of them were there was no ties to each other.
Okay.
All different suspects, different motivations, all of that.
Sure. My other question, I'll be really quick. It is a lot of Northeast Salem is not in Salem proper and is unincorporated, in which the county has jurisdiction over that. You don't have none of the information you give on bias crimes includes anything outside of Salem city limits. Is that correct?
That's correct. So
Okay.
these incidents would be incidents that Salem Police Department took a report on.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Chair, can I speak to Mel directly for a second?
Go ahead.
Hi, welcome. It's good to
Hi, I
see
should
you.
be on this committee. Okay.
It's good to have you here. Just wanted to give maybe a couple more comments in addition to what Robert was sharing. One is that, in my experience, which is lengthy now on the commission, it's everywhere. It's not just a North Salem phenomenon. It's unusual to see such kind of an exclusive concentration, but obviously things happen in Northeast Salem as they do other places. And a lot of them do happen at schools, though. And I just wanted to mention that to you in particular, that it's long been a discussion point on the commission about how to kind of bolster our relationship with schools, because so much of what we do, I don't want to say a majority, but gosh, it's a lot of the things
Okay.
that we hear are vandalism that happens at schools and is often youth related, as you can imagine. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then second, um, we don't collect count non-Salem, non-city county data, but the state does on a county by county basis through their DOJ hotline, which is a newer thing. I think it's maybe 3 years old now, and we've been trying to find ways to incorporate those data into our reports, and hopefully there'll be more on that soon.
Thank you. Officer Dowd, I appreciate the ability or the time and commission to ask you these questions. I didn't ask about schools specifically because I don't want to do school business on this commission's time, but I'd like to follow up with you if that's okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
You bet.
But thank you, Mel. Are there any other questions for Sergeant Dowd?
Just a thought. Do we typically see more of these in the summer or no? Or can you
If I
remember?
looked at last year's data, I would not say that there was a significant increase in the summertime. We have more violence in the summertime, but not typically bias-related violence.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Coleman.
Do you find that, I guess, more of the perpetrators, I guess, in the summertime are coming from outside of Salem? I'm just thinking like with the Pride thing, like they weren't from Salem. And so I just wasn't sure if the victims reside here, but then the assailants don't.
Well, as those of you that have served on the commission for any length of time know, oftentimes we don't know the perpetrators of these incidents, right? We find out after the fact, well after the fact, we get calls of vandalism and there's nobody around, there's no video. So it'd be tough to say definitively if people are coming from outside of the area or not. But in most of these incidents, it looked like the suspects were local to Salem in the 5 incidents that I spoke on. And then obviously we've already mentioned the Pride event.
Are there any other questions for Sergeant Dowd? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Sergeant, for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We'll move on to agenda item 4B, complaints of discrimination that were not reported to Salem Police Department.
There's actually no report at this point in time for that.
Thank you. We will move on to agenda item 4C, Regional Transportation Equity and Inclusive Planning SCATS update. We'll welcome to the podium Mel Fuller. This one up front, please. Thank you.
Hi. I'm here at the request of your Vice Chair, Christina. She asked me to come and tell you about a board that I serve on through my through my elected seat on the school board, and that's the Salem Kaiser Area Regional Transit Study, which we call SCATS for short. And as a former park ranger, SCAT, right? But it's what keeps me going through those boring meetings is it's the same name as. Anyway, what SCATS does is there's some, I'm going to give you a few definitions and terms first to make it easy. MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, that's a federally mandated body for any urban areas over population of 50,000. We are provided with some federal funding to carry out transportation planning processes federal funding to carry out the transportation planning process would be funneled through MWVCOG, which is Mid-Willamette Valley COG. You guys are probably familiar with COG, okay? And expended at the direction of SCATS. So federal money comes in to the COG, and SCATS helps distribute it to these different transportation projects. The reason being is that the federal money is considered to be spent better by local officials rather than federal officials. It's very geographic specific and local. And it's not a whole lot of money when it comes to transportation projects. They are expensive. On the policy committee, it's all elected representatives throughout the community. There's the cities of Kaiser and Turner. Their mayors are on that board. Both Polk and Marion County commissioners serve on that board. A representative from the Salem Area Mass Transit District, or Chariots, is on the board. A representative from the Salem Kaiser School District, that is myself. And then usually a Regional 2 manager from ODOT will attend the meetings as well. The group started in 1987, and since then amendments were added in 2003 to add the city of Turner as population expands. And in 2023, it expanded to include Almsville. SCATS does 3 things. the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or the MTP. It's a 20-year plan for prioritized transportation investments regionally, and it's updated every 4 years by the SCATS group. We are currently in that process now. The TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, is a 4-year allocation of federal and state transportation funds to projects. It's updated every 2 to 3 years, and we just passed that in May. And the UPWP, which is the Unified Planning Work Program, that details the work undertaken within SCATS, focuses on studies and programs such as facility studies, programs like traffic modeling and forecasting. We meet on the second Tuesday of every month, and meetings are open to the public. SCATS staff maintain a travel demand model. This is really interesting if you go in and play with it on their website. It's used to assist members in making informed decisions about upcoming transportation needs in the area. In maintaining the model, the staff use data such as personal trip-making characteristics from household surveys, like the number of trips per day, types of trips like work, school, or shopping, origin and destination inside or outside of the SCATS region, mode of trips, driving, foot, bike, bus, and time of day. It also includes socioeconomic information, such as census info, household size, income levels, workers per household, employment counts, and population growth forecasts. It has detailed information about street and highway systems like number of lanes, streets, intersections, posted speeds, and it tracks other travel in and out of the region, like going from Dallas to Salem or Salem to Portland, and traveling through the region. Like if you're going from Eugene to Portland, you're going to pass through Salem. It's information dense. I appreciate it. But I think that Christina and I thought that you all would like to know about SCATS because it uses information such as socioeconomic data and personal household trips, which can look different for different people depending on their abilities or inabilities, things like that. Any questions so far? I know it's a lot of really dense acronyms and information. I tried to make it as user-friendly as possible.
Vice Chair Ballard.
With the transportation improvement plan, that's where they include things like accessibility issues, right? And
Possibly.
moving forward.
Right. It's tricky. I'm in my first year and I'm still, I didn't come with a big transportation background. And so this has been a big learning curve for me. And it's been really interesting, especially I highlighted the model. It's really fun to go in and look at that on their website and look at all the different data. But yeah, when we identify projects within our area that we look at usage, we look at accidents, we look at all sorts of different data, and we look at how we can improve those using the data that I listed, the personal trip making, the socioeconomic info, all that. Any other questions? I haven't really got to what I think you guys need to hear about yet about SCATS, but we'll get there. No? Okay. Hot takes on SCATS. This is going to be my favorite part. Did you want to say something, Celine? Okay. So right now, the structure of SCATS is up for discussion, and the structure is who's on the board, how much weight does each member get, and do we need to add votes or take votes away? So all of those discussions are happening right now, not against, but aside of the current charter that we have that explains all that. There's members of the group who want to change it. Last year, a motion passed 5-4 to give the city of Salem an additional vote and to give Almsville a vote. Turner was added in 2003 and got a vote, so Almsville wanted one as well. That was last year, and Almsville still has not received a vote, nor has Salem received an additional vote. And the reason is because, let's see, how do I say this? One of the members, many of the current members seem to approve projects based on geographic area specific to the areas that they represent on their elected positions or other reasons, which is not a consideration listed in the process in which we evaluate projects. So we have some members of the board who are evaluating projects based on data outside of what we use. When that vote passed 5-4 last year, a member subsequently challenged that Robert's rules weren't followed and the motion shouldn't have passed. So we're kind of locked in kind of locked in conversation about how do we move forward with this. Further, each member of SCATS is required to contribute financially to help pay for the SCATS staff that maintain the data and the documents that we approve, as well as to give each voting member kind of some skin in the game. One of the members does not wish to pay their part, citing financial crisis and that the projects within the area that he represents in the elected body that he serves is not, doesn't get enough projects approved in that. So right now, we're really kind of locked until we resume this forward. So the member that's citing financial crisis in their elected body is something that we're all experiencing in everyone that we serve. And if this member is to get their way, then that would increase the portion that the rest of us pay. And they would still get a vote, but not skin in the game. So there's some turmoil going on in SCATS. But I thought that you would, as the commission, as the Human Rights Commission, would be interested to hear that a lot of the data that we are that we're supposed to use to evaluate these projects, different reasons are being used to evaluate them than what are supposed to. That's my take as a member on that board. In my 1-year experience so far, meetings get contentious. People walk out sometimes, and meetings can last for hours. It's for a meeting that happens on the second Tuesday of every month at noon. It's a pretty big event to have these meetings. I think, let's see. Oh, also, going back to the structure of SCATS being up for discussion, there is consistently yearly, the past few years in a row, there's discussion coming up wanting to remove the representative from the Salem-Keizer School District because the reason being is that the school district consumes infrastructure rather than builds it. But what that's really, it's just a way to leverage more votes and move them around is my feeling. Every year the school district stays on it, even though it gets brought up anyway. So it's something that just keeps repeating. And let's see. I think I covered it all that I had in my notes. Does anybody have any more questions about it? It's kind of a far reach to be in front of the Human Rights Commission talking about a transportation committee, but I do believe that there are things happening on this committee that you would like to know about because it's just the way the decisions are being made.
Commissioner Berenbaum?
Yeah, so you were saying they're trying to remove Salem-Keizer. Do you guys have the data for the number of students who use the public transport to get to school?
That's a great question. And that's something that I've brought up as a counter argument to that movement is that we serve a very large geographical area of children and families within that area. Many children themselves are vulnerable just because of their age, but many of their parents can be as well.
And then, sorry,
no,
I was
go
also
ahead.
curious for when it comes to projects, demographic basis,
Mm-hmm.
do you also look at just people with registered, because the census you can register if you're disabled or not, with disabilities and stuff as well to look into accessibility projects?
We do look at census data
Yeah.
to weigh those projects.
Okay.
It's included in there's a weighing system that we use, and it doesn't always get followed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I think that's a much shorter way of saying what I was trying to say up until now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Commissioner Coleman?
Yeah. So there's 9 people on there right now?
I
So,
believe so.
okay, so there's 9 votes.
I'm not quite sure of that. I would have to double check.
Okay.
Honestly, the way in which the meetings are conducted sometimes, it is really hard. I mean, I've been on a year and I still have a lot of questions and we rarely vote. We've rarely voted in a year. So it's an interesting dynamic. And as someone who's been to almost every meeting in that time and present and accounted for and doing my homework and being prepared for the meeting, sometimes it's a little confusing what's going on.
I was just wondering, like how many votes Salem had out of the 9.
Okay, so-
Possibly 9.
So that's kind of what a lot of the question is because it's population based. It was brought up a while ago that Salem should get 2 votes. And that didn't happen because of the stopping with the just the saying Robert's rules wasn't followed. It was a way to hold that up from happening. So right now, people are not wanting, or some people on the board who originally wanted to give Salem 2 votes don't want to anymore, and that reason is not clear. But they're willing to vote against the motion just so Salem does not get 2 votes, which would also not give Almsville their vote. So it's just an interesting trade-off with how it works. And I've spent the whole time on the board trying to understand what this is, and it wasn't until really digging in to come and give this presentation that I really truly was able to understand by finally talking to enough people and getting the story straight. It's confusing and it's long, and it involves people who have been in office for a really long time and people who are just coming in. And I just invite you guys to watch the meetings. They're long sometimes, but they can be really interesting.
Commissioner Laura Mitkiff.
I'm overjoyed that SCAS has come up here at the HRC, and I thank you, Mel. I had the distinct honor of sitting in for all of one meeting as an alternate for our beloved Sadie Carney when I was on the Chariots board, and she wasn't able to attend, and it was a whirlwind. And so thank you for doing it for a year. I also, if my memory serves, there was, I'm happy to hear that the expansion of Tuvo Salem was adopted, because as I recall, there was a period, quite an extended period, where people were just not coming to meetings, so as to not have quorum, so as not to vote and deliberate
That
on
happens
that.
too.
I'm glad that impasse was overcome. My question, though, for you is, how would you ideally have us be involved? Because obviously, transportation, infrastructure, and transit are, of course, human rights issues. Um, my understanding is, so we're in July of 26. My understanding is the TIP would have already been recommended for adoption at this point for the next 3 years. Has that happened already? It should happen like in the spring.
Right. Let me make sure. Let me go back to my notes here.
Maybe in May.
The
If it-
TIP was just passed in May.
Yes, and that's a
The-
3-year,
That is a 4-year.
4-year. Okay.
The MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan,
Yeah.
is currently in that process now. It was last updated in May 2023, and it was up to be passed again in May of 2026. However, it has not. Because of this issue, we're unable to move forward until we figure out the structure, because people don't, and that's been delayed because, as you mentioned, sometimes people don't come to meetings. And it was an interesting precedent to be set the last couple meetings when a vote was asked to be delayed until a certain member was able to attend.
Yeah.
So it's just the procedural stuff that comes into question. And I think your question was, to me, was how can this commission get involved with SCATS? My answer to that would be there's a public comment period at the beginning of every meeting. I think signaling that you're paying attention. I think that helps. There's a website that was just started called the Cherry Pit. It's a website or Facebook group. But a comment from that meeting, from one of the SCATS meetings, made it on that. And the Cherry Pit is I don't even know how to say it. They just calling people out, I guess, is the best way to say it. But they picked up a comment from one of our board members during a meeting, and I would just encourage you to look it up and just to see some of the things that are said in the meetings. It's a multi-governmental board that is public, and this is a good way for you to maybe look at how decisions are being made. It's a good chance for you to see some integrity examples of both what it is and what it isn't. Being really loose with my words here. I think the best thing that this commission could do is observe and call out things when you see it. Right now, as me calling it out, I think I just look like one person on the committee that always their vote loses. And that's not always very convincing to people. But I think if another commission, such as a Human Rights Commission, was to start paying attention and looking at the way things are done and are not done, I think that could go a little bit of ways that just one person like me cannot.
Commissioner Coleman.
I can provide a little clarity about that, just for the record.
Please.
When people are intentionally creating discrepancies when it comes to math, and being biased towards certain populations, specifically with us coming out of our community belonging survey, I think it's definitely a good look. Well, it's not a good look for that elected official, but if that same thing had happened here in Salem from an elected official, it probably would have led to an investigation. And so I encourage those of you that haven't seen the video to look at it.
All right. Open an investigation. So are you saying that?
I'm saying that if that had occurred with an elected official from probably our jurisdiction, there would have been a lot more backlash than what has occurred.
Right.
And so I encourage those of you that haven't looked at it, or if you want to see like Mel's comments in the video as well.
Oh, that's right. I did comment in the video. They showed that when the comment was made, several of us on the board expressed our disdain for it and offense, quite frankly. So yeah, I encourage people to watch it and come to your own conclusions. It's a compelling video. And I'm not saying that because of my comments, and just saying that because of what I responded to.
Vice Chair Ballard.
Thank you so much for being here today to talk about this. I think it's really important. One, that we have a better understanding of how all the data that's accumulated about us gets applied. And this is a complicated version of that, right? Transportation is very complicated, and especially when we're talking about the statistical area, the metropolitan, what is it referred to? The title?
MPO.
The MPO, right? Because we're not a city of X size, right? We don't get this funding, but we get this other funding that comes along with, we have to share it with Turner and Almsville.
Right.
And so you guys make the decisions based on data. And we have the data that gets accumulated includes all of the things that we focus on.
Right. One of the, and I understand some of the argument about the structure from the group because of Salem's concentration of population. When you look at the data and use that weighing system that we have, a lot of it points right to Salem projects for approval. So if you're somebody from rural Polk or Marion County, it could get frustrating that not a lot of this money gets sent to projects in your area. But the way that the way that we have, the way that SCATS has the weighting system for those projects set up, that's just a natural, I mean, nobody's arguing that those areas don't need infrastructure and more money spent on transportation. The way the group is structured is that money tends to go to who uses it the most. And that is Salem proper. And so we have the school district, which covers all of Salem and outside of it even. We have a city councilor that covers Salem. We have a county commissioner, which Salem is included in that area. It does look like Salem already gets a lot of votes. And so it's just, that can be changed, but it was designed that way for a reason.
And you said if Salem gets the extra vote, then Almsville won't? What is it?
Right. So if I'm wrong, I will come back and correct myself and eat my words. But I believe the motion is for Salem to get, for the Salem City Councilor to get 2 votes and Almsville to finally be able to vote. So
Oh, the motion includes all of that.
the motion includes all of that. So if Salem gets 2 votes, Almsville gets 1. If Salem doesn't get 2 votes, which is what some people on the commission don't want, then Almsville doesn't get their vote. So it's just, it's confusing, I know.
That seems confusing to have had that motion made in that manner. I would have expected those to be to 2 separate
They-
motions.
Correct.
All right,
Interesting.
all right, let's
Thank you.
move on.
Yeah, but I'm happy
I-
to come back and speak to you guys again and update you. I'm even happy to come back and explain the weighting system more if you want more information on that. I'm also happy to come back and give updates.
I do have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Ms. Fuller. So one of the things that we'll be tackling next on the agenda is council report and recommendations from both our community belonging survey and our disability rights task force. I'm curious to know what initiatives SCATS is taking to improve public transportation accessibility for individuals that have a disability or those that are oftentimes reporting higher rates of discrimination within the city of Salem. So for example, is SCATS currently taking initiatives to improve rideshare accessibility for individuals experiencing homelessness or disabilities? For example, if you go to San Francisco anything provides free public transportation, to individuals experiencing homelessness so they can get, to and from appointments and then get around. However, the city of Salem anything is not one of those. Has that ever been a recommendation from SCATS?
Okay. Let me unpack that a little bit. Has SCATS ever recommended?
Low cost or no cost fare,
No.
365
Not
days
since
of the
I came on
year.
the board, no. And again, I've only been on a year. I don't want to speak to any time before I was on because I wasn't there. But I know that for a while, Chariots was kind of a hot topic in town with the they're wanting to incorporate a tax that they were rightfully allowed to do so, and community backlash against that. That backlash was also expressed in those meetings. So in the SCATS meetings. So I have not seen an investment in any kind of public transportation or willing to do so in my time on the board this year. Was that your question?
Yeah, it answers the question. The next question would be, what is SCATS's role in making recommendations to improve public transportation infrastructure for individuals with disabilities, i.e. ensuring that every bus stop has, adequate park benches or coverings, or investing in more public transportation stops near medical facilities so individuals aren't having to walk on unsafe sidewalks as they're trying to navigate medical appointments?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I'd be happy to take those questions to our chair, who might have would know more about the historical work of SCATS and what they've done. I have not seen that happen in my time on the board in a year.
Okay,
And
thank you.
again, if I've misspoken, I'm new on the board. If I've misspoken, I will come back and eat my words and correct myself. My intention here is not to give false information, but I'm a human and sometimes that happens. So I'll correct myself if I'm wrong.
I appreciate your time, Ms. Fuller. I appreciate you coming. We've had the pleasure over the last year or so as a commission, to hearing various guest speakers share, their perspectives from, the boards and commissions they serve on or the organizations they work with. So I appreciate you coming to engage with the commission this evening.
Absolutely. I mean, much of the population that I serve in my ward or zone on school board, I mean, it's all in Salem and it's all affected. It's all part of what this board serves as well. So it makes sense for me to be here. To me, it makes sense to me to be here. That's what I meant to say.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to agenda items 4D and E. We will combine those 2 agenda items. So for a little bit of background, the Disability Rights Task Force was convened, I believe about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, to identify areas of improvement as it relates to disabilities in the city of Salem and recommendations that we could bring forth to city council to improve accessibility for individuals with disabilities. We were able to hear from a variety of organizations. We've held focus groups, hearing from members of the community. We've heard from city staff from various departments on what their department does and some of the limitations that they have in advancing infrastructure or implementing new initiatives to support individuals with disabilities. And then for the community belonging survey, every year we have the ability to partnership with the Western Oregon University to conduct an annual community belonging survey. And then that survey was wrapped up this spring. Professor Bradshaw delivered a report and presentation to council. And so the purpose of this meeting is to talk about both the community belonging survey and what data points and data elements stood out from that report that we might want to advance to council as part of an annual report, and then what recommendations from the community belonging survey and the Disability Rights Task Force that we want to advance. So open up to thoughts or suggestions first, and if not, if that seems this all anything, I did draft a discussion guide we can walk through. But I do know that Commissioner Larry Midkiff did chair the Disability Rights Task Force and invested quite a bit of time into that. So.
Yeah, so we've already heard a little bit from Eunice and Nicole and their kind of thorough comments about subsidized housing and development and incentivizing accessible development in the private sector markets for housing. I think the things that I would recommend focusing our time on in the immediate future would have to do with things that are immediately within the city's purview and within the city's control. And so there was a lot of discussion around kind of pedestrian safety, signalization, talking about how to make public spaces safer. I know that staff has been working on for some time, though I haven't heard updates recently about getting information around hearing accessibility to places of public accommodation downtown and elsewhere. Trying to review old literature from when we made those code amendments, however many years ago now, to making sure they're up to date. We've received at least one complaint in the recent past rather, about that. Just to give a few examples. And so I think there's a smattering of things in these recommendations that I would really just like to hand to staff to explore implementing. So that we're some of these are all kind of tiered things. I mean, obviously, like incentivizing accessible housing is going to take a lot of people over a long period of time, and that's fine and right. And Nicole has already been very responsive, I think, given the complexity of the issues we brought up to her, to try to integrate our feedback into places of accommodation. And I think something similar should happen at the city level. That will involve working with staff to work with their peers across city government to ensure those things are kind of handled sensitively. And I'm happy to think through which of these recommendations kind of belong in that camp, but that'd be my recommendation to begin there.
Thank you. Chris, if you don't mind pulling up the document that I shared. All right. I will admit, I leveraged the help of artificial intelligence to pull some of this information and some of the key findings. But I think what we can do is we'll start with some of the highlights from the community belonging survey. We can run through these and then see which of these do we want to include. Do we want to include all of them into a report to council, or do we want to pull any of them, or do we want to add others? So belonging is uneven across the community. 54% of the general population agree they feel a sense of community in Salem, but average agreement is markedly lower among people experiencing homelessness, 2.5 out of 5, and Latino residents, 2.9, while higher among Pacific Islander, 3.9, and residents 65 or older. Trends are diverging, not just levels. Nearly half of people experiencing homelessness, 49%, and a third of Latina residents, 33%, say their sense of community decreased a lot in the past year, while the general population and Pacific Islander respondents mostly report staying the same or improving. Discrimination is common and for some groups constant. 23% of the general population personally experienced discrimination in the past 12 months, compared to 84% of people experiencing homelessness. 57% of Latino, Latina, and Latin residents, and 59% of residents with a disability. Nearly half of people experiencing homelessness who witness discrimination say they see it daily. Housing status and race ethnicity are the leading basis for discrimination, most often occurring in businesses and public outdoor spaces. Concrete, nameable settings for education and outreach efforts. Trust in Salem PD to handle discrimination cases is close to an even split. 37% agree, 40% disagree, and is lowest among young adults ages 18 to 24. People experiencing homelessness and Latino, Latina, and Latin residents. The one theme that constantly builds trust is direct, positive personal contact with officers. Awareness of the HRC itself is lowest among the groups most affected. Only 17% of people experiencing homelessness and 25 to 26% of Latino, Latina, Latin, and Pacific Islander residents were aware of the commission before the survey, compared to 44% of the general population. Fear related to ICE presence surfaced unprompted. 1 in 5 open-ended comments, 20% in total, named ICE activity as reducing safety and belonging, describing residents avoiding public spaces or hiding their language or origin. Homelessness and loss of dignity is the single largest theme in what decreases residents' sense of community. 43% of all open-ended comments, ahead of discrimination, dehumanization, 33%, and tension between safety and compassion. So those were some of the potential highlights from the community belonging survey that we could include in a report to council. What are people's thoughts on some of those highlights? Were there any that were not added here that we might want to add from the community belonging survey in a report to council? Are there any here that we might want to withhold from our report to council? Keep in mind, council will see the larger report. This is a highlight report that comes from the City of Salem Human Rights Commission to City Council.
Hi, it's Georgia. One of the things that I have noticed in Salem for the month of June was a lack of Pride support, we could say. Like, I did see that there was a commissioner, mayor-elect, that posted one post, Happy Pride. From somebody coming into Salem newer, my first kind of Pride season doing that, but I was surprised that I did not see more presence on social media. I saw a lot of presence for other festivals, and again, any presence is wonderful, and I love that everybody loves to celebrate Salem, but it was a little concerning as a queer person coming in to Salem. I was like, oh my gosh, including, I know that there's somebody that does a lot of like Salem promotion, using the mall and things like that. There was nothing posted about any of the events from that social media outlet on Facebook. We have Basic Right, or not Basic Rights Oregon, but I'm sorry, Rainbow Youth, with Danny, that leads a lot of the community and doing things outside of Capitol Pride, including the Salem, the new Spark that they're trying to get, which is the Queer Center for Salem. Have not seen any support coming from anybody in the city about that. I don't know if that's just a disconnect between the people that are doing the fundraising and trying to get that going, or if there is a bias towards leadership where it's kind of like, I don't know if we're promoting this. Again, it's always great to see the one or two, but I was surprised that everything just comes from Capitol Pride, but we're not seeing a lot of support from city officials. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just didn't see it.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Vice Chair Ballard.
I know that this would be anecdotally, Chris, but do you know, has the city made a concerted effort one way or another to support events in the community that are not city sponsored?
Not city-sponsored. I can't speak to that. We do have a new public information officer and team that is promoting city-sponsored events. Capitol Pride Block Party was a city-sponsored event and received transient occupancy tax revenues for putting on that event. And so that was, I believe that was posted and shared with our public information officer and put into the city connections letter that goes out on a weekly basis, as well as several other events that took place in the month of June.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, could you clarify, were you saying you weren't seeing members of the city advertise it or support it? I guess I'm not clear.
Yeah, both. I was just for coming in, for having it be the state capitol. You do quite large events. There's a lot of things that are going on through the city that aren't just that, but usually what I'll see is like banners or other city officials, people on their personal pages, anything will just send out messages. And I wasn't seeing that. Again, I may be looking in the wrong space, but it was something that was also brought up in conversation with some people from PFLAG, again, some people from Rainbow Youth, that felt that they were just, so when you're talking about looking at kind of, how do we feel? You did this survey. If like, is there a sense of belonging? I just felt it was a good time to bring that up and kind of talk about it and see if it could be noted. Or if I could find information and be able to send people the right direction and be like, no, it is supported. Look here and here and here. And also to strengthen maybe some of the relationships where people would go if they are working on Spark and would like to see, more of the city support on that.
Okay, thank you. I saw support from the city for the Pride event I did see the City Connections newsletter, and as someone who's online a lot, I did see a few. I guess that there's not an overwhelming amount of support from people who are not in the Pride community. Is that what I'm
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner-
Or I don't know if they would be or not, just not to be assumed to be in the Pride community.
Commissioner Berenbaum.
I would just like to add that for me, I mainly saw a lot of the marketing via Salem or the Capitol Pride. As someone who is a part of the queer community, it is mainly on the queer socials where I saw that support. But again, it could be just my algorithm. I don't know about that. I would also like to add for this month as well, I've seen an uptake personally in, I don't know if I classify it as discrimination, but people very adamantly pointing out my physical differences. I don't know what it is about this month, but I had teenagers in a truck pull up to me while I was grabbing mail for my office and take a picture of me and drive off. I've had a lot of just adults and children blatantly staring and questioning me. So I don't know if it's what's in the air this month, but.
Okay, I thank you for that. I do want to bring this back to some of the to the highlights and recommendations to present to council based off of the community belonging survey. Commissioner Smith, let me know if this and kind of bringing it back, what you think of in the highlight section, highlighting some data regarding the LGBTQIA plus community and those respondents and their sense of community belonging in the city of Salem. I think we could add that as a highlight. And then for recommendations, what I was picking up on was recommending that public officials, elected and staff, provide more public support for events, organizations, and spaces that support LGBTQIA plus communities. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you. And then my apologies, I don't know names yet, but one of the answers to why there might be an increase in the discrimination or more visibility, even unwanted visibility, is I do believe it's Disability Awareness Month.
It is Disability Pride Month now for July. It follows
Okay.
Pride Month. Mhm.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ballard.
I do think we need to be concerned with the I lost it. There was a statistic regarding homelessness and it seemed that people who were experiencing homelessness were experiencing higher rates of discrimination.
Yes, and I believe that
And this is partially, it's always partially a result of how leaders speak about situations. And we see a lot of people at city council meetings coming and talking about the homelessness issue. And there's only certain times that it's going to be on the agenda. For example, if they're approving more money funds for something, or if they're talking about the new REACH team, right? It's that there's only going to be specific times when the elected officials can talk about it. We'll talk about it, or they could make a comment. And we do hear a lot from the public. We hear from businesses, and we hear from just your average Joes talking about the homelessness issue. And the way in which we talk about it has an impact on how everyone treats the homeless. When we use language that is more careful and thoughtful, we can help prevent people from feeling alone, people from feeling discriminated against. We can help, instead of referring to people experiencing withdrawal from a substance use and calling them a zombie if they are on something, why don't we call them a person in crisis? Instead of calling people names and talking about how dangerous the homeless are, why don't we talk about the actual statistics instead? And that the homeless are more likely to be victims of crime, not commit crime. There's a narrative that gets passed around at city council meetings that the city needs to do something about the homeless problem. Well, there's not much the city can do, right, within the confines of what a city is able to do. But people within the city can encourage others to talk about the issue appropriately. And I think that we need to make an effort, and we need to let the city council know that we need them, that they are leaders, and we need them to lead the way in speaking about our most vulnerable population. Because they're the ones who are telling us they feel discriminated against. And that's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions, comments, or remarks on specifically talking about what highlights from the community belonging survey that we want to potentially include in a report to City Council that summarizes the community belonging survey report that the students from Western Oregon University compiled. Keep in mind, we can't vote on yay or nay, like we can't, lock in these highlights or recommendations, given that we don't have quorum, but we can at least discuss these and then we can bring them back to the HRC in September with hopes of being able to get on the council agenda to deliver this report and these recommendations, either late calendar year or early next calendar year.
Robert, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I think so for the last two or 3 years, we've had kind of these extended opportunities to provide long, by comparison, presentations to council. And I think we should really capitalize on that if we're afforded a similar slot of 10 to 15 minutes. Previously, it ran like 3 to 5 minutes. And so the things that we could share were pretty abbreviated. And we really relied on the narrative, a kind of a written narrative when presenting this information. And even prior to that, we didn't give presentations. It was just a written report. So I really find these 10 to 15 minute windows to be valuable. And I'm inclined to suggest that to the extent possible that we can begin to really kind of historicize these trends and these results for counselors. I think one thing that is valuable, of course, is to say, this is what we found this year. But it's a kind of a different sort of valuable if you can say, this is what we found this year, and it compares in these ways to the last 5 years, which we can say for many questions with some confidence. And in particular, the PEH demographics, the people experiencing houselessness demographics that we have in the survey are very robust. And we really feel confidently about how we can represent and attest to those experiences. And to Christina's point, part of historicizing is telling a story around experiences of belonging and discrimination. And many of us on the commission have kind of buttressed this point over the years around all the themes that Christina just kind of gestured towards. And similarly, to George's point, in the past, we've been able to kind of narrativize questions of belonging by foregrounding certain quotations from the survey that can really dress up findings and humanize them in a way that's often very valuable and that counselors really engage with. So I guess my broad comment before getting into the particulars would be to say that I think, in addition, while we should focus, of course, on this year's results, I think this might be a good opportunity to kind of turn historically too and think about changes and continuities over time. To that end, I think specifically to these, I don't know how many they are here, 7 or 8 bullets that I'm looking at. I think the one that I would strike first, because while 10 to 15 minutes can be generous, it isn't indefinite. I'd probably strike the awareness of the HRC as being part of the presented talk. I don't think we've included that historically. Robert, you gave it last year. Maybe you did. I don't think we have. And largely, not that it's not important, it's just I'm not sure if it's what the council needs to know and think about and digest. I think that's something that we need to sit with whenever we get these results, and plus it'll be included in the write-up. I think the things that we really ought to highlight are, as I kind of gestured to just here briefly, is one, the continuity of discrimination, its dailiness, its extremity among people experiencing homelessness, and then this decrease in the sense of community and belonging among Latinos and folks experiencing houselessness, as well as those with disabilities in our community. I think those are that continuity and then these downward trends are pretty marked, and I think kind of speak to the tumult of the last year, what's happened in Salem and our Mid-Valley communities in the last 12 months that I think need to be at the forefront of our presentation, or at least at the heart of it. Pick your metaphor. So those are things that I would highlight, and I would drop the awareness point, and then try to find ways to historicize these findings for counselors.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments regarding the highlights? No, we can move on to some potential draft recommendations that we can include based off of both the Community Belonging Survey and Disability Rights Task Force. All right, we'll move on.
I have comments. I think there's value in addition to Commissioner Midkiff's comments, Laura Midkiff, adding the housing status and race ethnicity, our leading basis for discrimination, that bullet, and then the trust in the Salem PD. The only reason I say the Salem PD one is because there's going to be new officers coming on in January, just based on the budget. And then for the discrimination, considering a lot of our public outdoor spaces are parks, which the city manages most of, obviously not including outside of city limits. And then businesses, there's often a disconnect between the Human Rights Commission and our local businesses. So I just think it would be good to mention both of those.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I agree with all that. I made some notes. The document's not live, so the document that Chris is sharing and the document that I'm taking notes on are completely different notes. But I did note on here that for the council report to historicize that information, highlight the types of discrimination and the populations that are experiencing that discrimination, as well as the frequency and location. So I do have that marked to include in a draft of the report that we'll bring back to this body in September with hopes of being able to vote on it and adopt it so we can advance it to council. I do want to move on to some of the recommendations. I'll just read through the draft recommendations and then we can go back through these one by one if we want. Keep in mind that I did leverage AI to draft this document just to give us kind of a conversation starter. So some of these are likely feasible, some of these might not be feasible, but that is for us as a body to discuss. Funded and formalized targeted outreach to people experiencing homelessness, Latino communities, Pacific Islander residents, listening sessions, trusted community partners, paid promoters, and peer roles. Another recommendation could be ask council to direct funding toward the community health improvement plans, increase sense of belonging goals, including support for HRC and partner organization applications. Encouraging Salem Police Department to expand out in the community engagement, events beyond the station, greater visibility of the homeless services team. They will loop to reach team in here, even though it reaches a Salem Fire and Marion County Behavioral Health collaboration. Request that council direct relevant departments to build universal design and accessibility into all city-funded or city-permitted housing and redevelopment from the design stage, rather than relying on retrofits. Recommend council explore incentives, tax credit, expedited permitting, grant programs for developers who exceed minimum ADA requirements, and funding to retrofit existing units such as grab bars, lever handles, ramps. Ask council to prioritize pedestrian and crossing safety improvements, audible signals, uninterrupted crosswalk buttons, sidewalk repairs, and lighting in areas near shelters, affordable housing, and downtown. Recommend council support immigrant serving resources, legal translation assistance, help with detention-related needs, and financial support for renewal paperwork. Recommend council formally establish or direct HRC to help design a disability advisory board, disabilities commission, or HRC disability rights committee with representation across disability types. Ask council to require basic accessibility and predictability standards for city meetings and public events, advanced agendas, sensory noise information, virtual participation options, and quiet or low stimulation accommodations. Recommend council invest in free or low-cost third spaces, public restrooms modeled on the Portland Loo, social gathering spaces, benches, and high-need areas such as downtown near transit. Ask council to task HRC and partner organizations with a public-facing summary of survey/task force findings and city response shared through the same channels used to promote the original survey. There are a lot there, but kind of just gives an idea of some potential recommendations. We can discuss if there's any on this list that we want to scrap, some that we think are worth highlighting, anything and adding to kind of the top of the report, or other recommendations that are not that aren't on this document. I know the larger disability rights task force one was almost like 28 pages of recommendations. So obviously they didn't all make it here. So I'm interested in hearing thoughts and feedback. Commissioner Laura Metcalf.
Yeah, thank you. I don't really feel negatively about any of these. My question though is for you and Chris, partly, I guess mostly, which is as we were wrapping up the task force, we had talked with Gretchen at some length about how to go about kind of digesting and recommending some of these recommendations. Obviously, some live at the council level, no doubt. Others don't. Others live even beyond what city government can do unilaterally. So I'm a little surprised to see DRT recommendations as part of kind of a catch-all that includes the belonging survey. I sort of imagined council. I sort of imagined recommendations from the Disability Rights Task Force that merited council consideration to be its own sort of thing, up to and including kind of a separate presentation regarding the task force, its process and results, and then what of those recommendations that were born of that process ought to be considered by council. So I guess, am I missing other conversations that have happened in the interim where a different direction has been decided? Because I'm excited for many of these, but I do feel them as different, as separate rather, uh, moments for council. I would hate to see, in other words, the RTF report recommendations being it's kind of consumed by the belonging survey, partly because while some counselors have been very aware of this work, others have not, and this may come as a surprise to them. And so I would like the opportunity to really present it in its entirety and on its own terms, and then have born from that presentation uh, recommendations, some of which we may discuss tonight and then come in this form, but hopefully probably wouldn't go into the belonging survey stuff. So I guess I'm just looking for clarity there on where we are in that process.
Thank you, Joaquin, for flagging that. It is entirely up to this body on whether or not we want to loop the reports and the recommendations into one large council report, or if we want to have two separate. Largely, these recommendations and in crafting one was that there were some similarities and intersections between the community belonging survey and the disability rights task force survey, and two, trying to kind of push momentum in getting some of this disability rights task force stuff out of the commission and to city council. We've spent a significant amount of time on these listening sessions, hearing from members of the community, hearing from city staff, and as well as preparing this document. And so largely having some of these recommendations was try to get some momentum to figure out which direction are we going, and kind of establishing a timeline for what happens next with the work of the Disability Rights Task Force.
If I may, I couldn't agree more. I would love that momentum. I think partly for me, the lack of momentum has felt in part attributable to us not meeting as a task force since its conclusion. And I know partly that had to do with, well, we've got this new direction from the city attorney that members of task force have to be members of the commission, and we've been waiting for members of the commission to be appointed. But I guess my point with this is to say I would love to maybe spend some dedicated time thinking collectively about which of these recommendations need to go to council, and really, frankly, how to frame those recommendations. Because something like we recommend that council recommends the establishment of a disability commission. Okay, I feel like I can do that. I can recommend that. I can write that. I can frame that. That's a yes or no sort of proposition. But a lot of these aren't. A lot of these are, we hope that council adopts a direction for planning to do 8 million things that takes a lot of time and a lot of kind of intellectual labor and policy changes. And so these aren't yes or no propositions. And so I say that because I think I would benefit from the expertise of city staff and city leadership in developing exactly the right framing for these recommendations. And that's very achievable. It just takes time and meeting, and we just haven't been doing that. And so I think I'd like to see us maybe resume meetings in some capacity, respecting the fact that, as Chris, I'm sure, would be the first to say, the staff capacity is limited. And so how do we balance that while also keeping this momentum going, as you say, in a way that we can, within hopefully not too long, get something in front of council to really sink their teeth into and to consider. I would love that.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding this recommendations piece?
I would just like to second Joaquin, because I feel like if we had another meeting just to make sure we were 100% all on the same page about how we want to word things specifically, as wording can be up for interpretation, I think that would be really beneficial to us.
All right. Anything else? All right, so just to summarize, we've landed on some of the highlights. There seems to be no objections to the highlights regarding the community belonging survey for the report that's going to go to council. Recommendations are to strike the awareness of the HRC itself from the highlight report that's provided to council, but then replace that with recommending that public officials, elected and staff provide more public support for events, organizations, and spaces that support LGBTQIA+ communities. Can be kind of a recommendation off of that report. And then historicize information across years for people experiencing homelessness and other populations for that report for council. And then highlighting the frequency of discrimination, types, and locations, as well as I am pulling some specific highlights for the LGBTQIA+ communities from that community belonging survey report. Does that sound like a very, does it sound like an accurate summary of the discussion that we've had? Chris, go ahead.
Point of clarification. Does the full report from the community belonging survey go to council?
Yeah, so council gets the full report from that we were presented with by Professor Bradshaw and the students. This is kind of just like a summary report, kind of a quick 1 to 2 page executive summary plus
the speaking points basically.
Yeah,
for a presentation.
Yeah, and then generally it's followed by like a 5 to 10 minute slide show presentation. So we'll get that prepared, and then I think next steps will be to have a summary of not summary, but a draft of this executive summary. And then it sounds like the recommendation, it sounds like the larger body as a whole would like to hold off on making disability rights task force recommendations to council at this time, and instead continue working with city staff on how we craft those recommendations that we prepare for council. Is that correct? All right. Any other questions, comments regarding agenda items 4D and E? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, staff updates.
None.
All right, agenda item 6, member remarks and announcements. All right, seeing none, the
I
time
do,
is,
Robert. Sorry, I'm sorry. There was someone else talking in the room. I was waiting for them to stop talking. I have one question for staff. Is that all right?
yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I received an email after our last HRC meeting that I can forward to you, but I wanted to follow up on a discussion from, gosh, we're in July, 7 months ago, from December, January. Some of us may recall when Nick Forty came before this body and brought up questions around the utility rate relief program, as well as the emergency utility assistance program, both of which I believe are run, well, one is run through the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, that's the utility rate relief program, and the other, the emergency utility assistance program, is run through St. Vincent de Paul and Salvation Army. And it distributes a lot of money to a lot of people, but Nick Forty was mentioning that he felt that that there were kind of unduly narrow requirements for eligibility for these programs that peer cities like Corvallis and Eugene and Portland did not have, that he thought were creating inequities in the system. And we had directed staff to look into that, recognizing obviously it's not a city-run program, but I just wanted to know if there's been any progress on that. He emailed me again about it, and I recognized that I hadn't thought about it much since February, March. I met with staff briefly about it, as well as some city councilors. I know there's been turnover. Obviously, Chris has come on full time in this role, and I just want to make sure it hasn't been lost, that work. So has there been any work on that done? And if not, I'd be happy to maybe meet with folks to think about that more explicitly here in the next few weeks.
Thank you for the question. Actually, since I've come on, no, that has not been on my radar. I'm not sure if
That's
there's
totally
other
fine.
staff, if there's other staff aside from me that had been.
I think Gretchen and I had talked about it during her transition. There's no blame game here. I just wanted to raise it again because I think it may have gotten, unfortunately, missed in the transitions and all that stuff. So maybe something we can discuss over email. I just wanted to say it for the record here tonight with everybody present.
Yeah, and you are correct that utility rate is not a city,
That's right.
so it's outside of my jurisdiction.
Something to think about together, though. I just wanted to mention it tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Welcome. Any other member remarks and announcements? All right, the time is now 7:29. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.